Welcome to episode number 44 of the Between Two Brands podcast. I'm your host, Bill Petrie, back from a promocation, and I think we might talk about that a little bit here in a moment. And glad to be back. Glad that you're still on this little podcasting adventure with me. So thank you for coming along. Before we get to my little preamble and our guest, I'd like to pay a bill if you don't mind. Hey, it is hard to believe as we sit here in the middle of November, but the PPAI EXPO is only 2 months away as it returns to fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada at the Mandalay Bay Convention Center, January 12th through the 15th, 2026. Now, if you're still on the fence trying to decide whether or not to go, let me remind you of a few things that only the PPAI Expo offers. It begins with the PPAI Expo conference on Monday, January the 12th. You might remember it as Education Day, but now it's called the Expo Conference. And it's going to feature expert-led education, the general session, and a keynote luncheon. This is a day of really great personal and professional growth. You won't want to miss it. Two, a massive, massive trade show floor from January 13th to 15th. The exhibit hall is going to feature over 1,000 companies across more than 2,800 booths. Better break in those walk-in shoes now. Number three, daily planned meetups such as Women in Promo, Young Professionals, Technology, and Inclusive Impact, all held at Promo and Pines right there on the show floor. So real easy to get to and partake in those. Four, live interviews, TED-style talks, and demos are going to be broadcast from the PPAI Live studio throughout the week. And if you can't make it, they're going to go ahead and simulcast that on the PPAI website. Number five, the Expo Party hosted at Allegiant Stadium on Wednesday, January 14th. This promises to be an ultimate tailgate with food, drinks, and games. There's an extra charge for that, but it's nominal and well worth it. Look, I got to be honest with you. There is no better way to kick off your year than attending the PPAI Expo. Now, I'm asking you to register today at ppai.org/expo. Trust me, this is really one event in the promotional products industry that you and your business simply cannot afford to miss. All right, so I mentioned I am back from the Promocations event last week. We were on a cruise ship, left out of Tampa, had a few sailing days, networking events, and we ended up in a day in Costa Maya, Mexico, and a day in Cozumel, Mexico. And it was fabulous. We get a lot of comments as we post content throughout the event week. Man, it looks like a great time. And I got to tell you, it is. But here's the thing. I want to give everybody a little peek behind the scenes a little bit. It is so much more work than people realize. And that's not saying, I'm not sharing that to complain at all, because it's work I and my partner Josh Robbins and I willingly take on. We embrace, we love the work, quite frankly. But that doesn't mean it's not work, and a lot of time, a lot of mental calories being spent, and a lot of energy being spent while we both run our own businesses. Josh has Vault Promotions, a great badge company here in the United States, and the promotional products business. They are in the United States, but you get my point. I have my business, and I'm a solopreneur, and so for me to plan time out of the office, whether it's for a promocation, whether it's for personal, whether it's for traveling to clients, I have to plan for that in advance because the work doesn't stop. So if I'm out of the office for a week, and I've talked about this before, but it bears repeating for our little conversation right now. If I'm out of the office for a week, that means I have to get all of the work done for not only the week I'm coming up, but the week I'm out of the office, because the work just stacks up. So it's one of those things I have to work on the Brandivate side to really prepare for. And then because there's really not a lot of work I can do on the boat, because sometimes the ship Wi-Fi is not great. And I got to tell you, my experience this time, unfortunately, the ship Wi-Fi was not fantastic. It's not fantastic when I can't wait to arrive in Mexico so I can flip on a cellular service and get LTE connectivity. So it was that bad. It was tough. But this one was a challenge. This specific Promocations was a challenge because it came just 3 months after our first land-based event in Cabo. And the reason was this sailing was actually supposed to happen in March. But unfortunately, the ship, one of the older ships in the Royal Caribbean fleet, had to go into dry dock. So they canceled our cruise and we had to reschedule it to November, which is a tough time for a lot of distributors and certainly suppliers as well. And so we had challenges. We had people had to drop off the event, even though they had planned on coming because of the date change and because of the time of year. And so it was tough finding some substitutes there. And that's a lot of energy Josh and I burned to do that. Now we ended up with a great group. And so that's the good news. We ended up with a great group. Getting there was challenging. But since it was months right after our planning our land-based event, we had to update the app very quickly. We have a event-specific app, so that had to be done very quickly. We had to find a new hotel because we had done these before in Fort Lauderdale. This time we sailed out of Tampa. We had to find a new opening night restaurant, which ended up to be fantastic in the Gen X Tavern. I think everybody absolutely loved it. 80s themed uh, uh, opening night place was fantastic. We had to find new excursions. We had to find new transportation from the hotel to the port, which was literally a mile away, but you have to find it because people aren't going to lug their week-long cruise luggage through the streets of downtown Tampa. And then once you get there, you have to host the event as well as participate. So Josh and I not only host the event itself, we're also sponsoring suppliers on that event. So that means we have double duty to not only make sure every guest, which are suppliers, distributors, and their plus ones, are having a great time. Excuse me. But we also have to focus on the other reason we're there, which is for Vault Promotions for Josh, for Brand Debate for me. So so we're hosts and suppliers too. So we're wearing double hats, and it's you talk about being on at an event. There's no event that compares to being on like running a Promocations event. And I will tell you, coming home, the phrase I came up with was beautifully exhausting. It was such a great experience. We had such a fantastic group of humans, and it's always fun to watch the group come together. And we've talked about that on social media, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse there. But man, being exhausted in every way a human can be exhausted. And then you're hosting the event, so there are things that go wrong. When people got on the ship the first day, none of the drink packages were loaded. So even though we expressed to people that can happen because we're a group, that it takes a good 3 or 4 hours for drink packages to get loaded, there was still some confusions there. When we went to our first round robin dinner, there were people not in our group sitting at our tables, and we had to usher them away. And when I say we, it was our event manager, and I'll get to that in a second. There were errors in the app. Look, good or bad, I take responsibility for the app. I put the data in there, and I'm human, and I made a couple mistakes where it caused a confusion for one night at dinner. Not a huge deal. It was very quickly rectified, but that's something that causes me to feel terrible, quite frankly. But I mentioned an event manager, and it's so important to have an event manager. We've had some great ones. We've had Kelly O'Brien from S&S Activewear, who did our first 3 events. She was fantastic. Unfortunately, she couldn't go to Cabo and couldn't go to this event. So we had Josh Ellis from our sponsor this week, PPAI, at our Cabo event. He did a fantastic job. And then there was our most recent event manager in Aubrey Coughlin from Mirror Promotions. And I will tell you, she knocked it out of the park. And all of our event managers have in their own way. What she did, she was able to take a lot of the stress away from Josh and I during the event. And I will tell you how I can't really tell you how huge that is. And I'll tell you, anybody, if you're running an event, have a great event manager. So our goal when we do these events, not the big goal of providing connections and all that, I'm talking about the goal for the event itself, is to make sure whatever issues we have, and there's always issues, there's always things that aren't planned, there's always things that go wrong, to make sure whatever issues we have behind the scenes, they stay behind the scenes and they're not known by any of the guests. And for the most part, I think we succeeded there. So I just thought I'd give a little peek behind the scenes today about planning a huge event like that. The next question is what's next? That'll be shared shortly. So we're looking forward to that. Now, before we get to our guest, who was on the PromoCruise last week, and I think it's a great guest. We're gonna have a great conversation. But before we get to her, let me go ahead and pay one final bill. Many people know how to build a business, but few understand not only when to sell your business, but the process involved to ensure you find the right partner and maximize the return on your investment. Now, honestly, This is where you need an expert, especially one in the promotional products industry, to help you. And that's where our good pals over at Certified Marketing come in. Jamie Watson and her team have decades of experience facilitating private company sales in the branded merchandise space. Now, to help you evaluate if it's time to sell your business, reach out to CMC and Jamie at info@certifiedmarketing.com for a confidential discussion today. All right, let's go ahead and bring on our guest. My guest today absolutely does not need an introduction, but I like to waste time. I got time to waste, waste time I will. I'm going to waste her time, my time, and your time. She's a seasoned leader with over 30 years of experience in the branded merchandise space. She joined California Tattoos and Promotional Products as Vice President of Sales in early 2025, where she is responsible for driving growth, bringing awareness to the brand, and creating winning partnerships with her customers. Distributors, that's you. She's an active industry advocate. She recently served on the PPAF board. That's the Promotional Products Association of Florida, for those of you scoring at home, and co-founded and helped launch the PPAF Brandy Awards. And I've actually been a judge on the Brandy Awards, so that's very cool. She's recognized by ASI, PPAI. She continues to engage in industry events and community initiatives. She's an awesome human being. Please join me in welcoming, and let's see if I don't butcher her last name. Here we go. Please join me in welcoming Jill Stirnkorb. Jill, thank you for
Hey,
joining me today.
Bill. Hey, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I know you've got a question or two. Now, full transparency, and I talked about this on the preamble where I talk. You were on the PromoCruise. I think you said you had a question about the PromoCruise.
I do, and it's great to see you again, Bill. We had a really terrific time last week. Um, as you said, I had
It
the
was fun.
opportunity, it was a lot of fun. I had the opportunity to join you, Josh, along with about 60 people on the
Hmm.
fourth Promocations cruise,
Yep.
which took place out of the port of Tampa, which is only about a 30-minute drive for me, so that was really easy.
Right.
But I have to say, like, one of the most exciting things before the trip was receiving the pre-sale merch kit
Yeah.
that all the different suppliers sponsored with fun product inside, which most of the attendees brought on the ship, whether wearing, using, showcasing throughout the week that we were on the cruise together. But I know what kind of work, planning, and organization goes into pulling off such an event like that. It was a 5 or 6 day, 6 night cruise. Like, I guess my first question for you is, what was it at this point in your career that ultimately inspired you to create Promocations?
That's a very good question. In I've learned things about myself, as we all do, as we go through our career. We think we're good at one thing, we think we like doing certain things. And as you kind of swerve through your career, you find this is really my passion. This is really something I love to do. And one of those things that I find most fulfilling about anything I've ever done is creating something from nothing, creating something tangible from an idea. I love watching ideas come to life. And so when Josh Robbins, my partner in Promocations, sat in my backyard, I still, this is how I remembered, I think he does too. It was his idea originally. Let me be very clear. He just wanted a partner to go along with him. And he felt I was the right partner. And so we sat in my backyard, we were sipping on Suburban, watching football, and we talked about what are the best parts of an industry event. And it's the stuff that's not the scripted education. It's not the round tables. It's not, those things are great and they absolutely have their place. But the best parts, the things people remember, and the places where business is really done, it's in the hallways between sessions. It's at the bar before dinner. It's during dinner. It's those unscripted, those accidental, or what we try to do on Promocations, intentional collisions of people. That's where stuff gets done. And so his original idea is, what if we made an event about that? Now, I think I was the one who suggested we should do it on a cruise ship, but it doesn't matter because from that idea, we both kind of blended what we felt we could build. And so it's a ton of work. That was what I spoke about earlier in the podcast. I mean, it is, I don't think people realize how much work it is before the event, And then because Josh and I have dual roles, we're hosting the event, so we want to make sure everybody has a great time and has the experience that for suppliers that they paid for and for distributors that they left their businesses and whatever they're doing, spent time to do. Want to make sure they get that experience, but we're also supporting suppliers, so we want to make sure it benefits Vault Promotions for Josh and Brand Debate for me. So what made us do it? We just felt there was a gap that this could be done better. And that's not to take anything away from a power meeting or an EME, man. Those are great events and they have their place. And it's not lost on us. We joke often. The last thing this industry needed was another event. But we do feel we've created something unique, something that actually adds a ton of value. It's quality over quantity, and it's been fun to do.
Yeah, yeah. I have one more question for you. So as you mentioned, Promocations intentionally sets the table for both professional and
Mhm.
personal collisions and connections, but to flourish in kind of a low key, relaxed environment. What kind of impact and or feedback have you already gotten from the trip last week, or maybe even previous Promocation trips?
Yeah, so I'll just focus on last week because I will tell you each one is so different. Even though we've done 4 cruises, each cruise is very different. Each cruise has its own personality. Each cruise, because of the people we have on board, gotten very positive feedback. That people liked the event because a couple of reasons you mentioned. One is we highly encourage people to bring their plus ones. It changes the dynamic of the event in a good way, I think. I think there can be a perception we're having a networking event on a cruise. On the surface, that sounds like a booze cruise. Everybody's blasted half the time, and who knows what kind of extracurricular activities might be happening. When we encourage spouses to come, it makes it much more wholesome. I don't know if that's the word, but it does. I don't, Josh and I never want to people to have the very incorrect perception that this is a floating eye candy. Okay.
Right.
That's very important to us. That's extremely important to us because it's not. And we also firmly believe that when you're making business relationships, when you make that personal connection too, whether it's with your husband Billy or with Brent Bella's wife Sarah, whomever it is, it makes it different. It makes it, you're working with your friends, you're working with people you've shared a very unique common experience with. And that's the big game, one of the big game changers for us, we feel in this event. And we've gotten some great feedback. Just it's so much work. And coming home, I think described it as beautifully exhausting. But seeing
I'm
how people
sure.
post about it afterwards in social media and the text messages we get, and we had someone, a distributor, and I'm not going to name names purposefully, but it was not excited about coming, and kind of had to his admission, he had a shitty attitude getting on the boat, getting to Tampa, going to the Gen X Cafe opening night. And I'd say by Tuesday afternoon, about 2 days into the event, he came up to me and he goes, I owe you an apology. This is phenomenal. This is the best industry event I've ever been a part of. I've learned more. I've made better connections.
That's great.
So that's probably one of the nicest compliments I've ever gotten. I know Josh got the same one, so I know he feels the
Yeah,
same.
yeah. I know I heard from one of the attendees yesterday that they already collaborated with another distributor attendee just
Yeah.
to help his team learn more about a vertical market that the other attendee is very strong in. And just those connections really help each other. And again, it's that comfort level that allows that by, being on this trip in a low key relaxed environment. And so I was thrilled to hear that. Not to mention, you know, selfishly myself, I already have 2 orders from the trip. So
That's
that's pretty
that
exciting.
That's what I love. People, Susan Lewandowski from Bell Promo, she loves this event and she has written business on the boat. Kelly Yarbrough from Stock 101, he wasn't able to be there, but his and VP of Sales was able to be there. And I know he's written
Mhm.
business on the boat. I just love that. And for me and Josh, it's hard for us during the event, although I try to. it's really hard to kind of sit back and go, wow, look what's happening. This is pretty
Sure.
amazing. You bring 60 people who really don't know each other, and it's very funny for us to watch as people kind of cautiously come up on the pool deck and get their event badge, and okay, well, oh, we'll see you at dinner, right? Okay, bye bye. And they walk away, and by the end of the trip, it is this mob of merch professionals that just travel and pack, and we love
Yeah.
that, absolutely
Yeah.
love it.
Well, I have to say that the highlight of my trip was winning
Oh,
this amazing award and medal for the best original song that we wrote about the cruise at the end of the trip.
yeah,
That was a lot of fun.
that
You guys threw that in our session at the end, and
yeah.
we had a lot of fun writing that. But winner,
That
winner.
was winner. That was a ton of fun. And you guys killed it. You guys, your team killed it. The other team killed it. That was a ton of fun. That was a ton of fun. And I'm so glad you were able to come and Billy was able to join us as well. And now it's time to turn the tables because this
All
is
right.
just despite other people like Alan Tucker taking control, this is still my podcast. And so I am now taking control back. So I want to start off with your journey in the
Okay.
promotional products industry. Now, you started at BIC in 1990, which is odd given the fact that you're 35. So I don't
Exactly.
math well, but you started BIC in 1990 and you stayed there for 34 years. And that includes the acquisition of BIC Graphic by private equity group, might be better known as the Kuzi Group, before joining California Tattoo. So, a couple of questions. How has the sales side, because I know you are a salesperson to the core, so I really want to focus on that. How has the sales side of the industry evolved in the past 30 years?
Well, interestingly enough, brand, obviously, we're all about brands in our industry. And I was looking in the Cincinnati Enquirer newspaper and I saw the BIC logo. And I sent my resume through snail mail, received a phone call a few days later on my landline at my house. And a couple weeks later, I had the job. And the first thing that happened is I was sent to meet with a local sales rep who was being promoted. So I was taking over his role. And he hands me a stack of green bar paper. Most people probably
Oh,
don't know what
yeah.
it is. So I got the green bar paper, and he literally said, Terry's your top account, and an A is 50% off. And that was my training. So that was the start of my training.
That sounds about right in this industry for training,
Yeah,
by the way.
yeah.
That
And
tracks. That tracks.
and back then, we were forecasted on units, not dollars, and
Right.
it was by trimesters. But we operated by using the ASI Fast Find. It was
Hmm.
a
Oh, gosh.
large book. It was our
It's like a
Bible.
phone book. It's
It
like
was
a
like a
phone
phone book.
book.
And we would go city by city, and they were listed, the distributors were listed alphabetically by city, and we would just canvas our whole territory that way. And we would use paper maps, city maps, state maps, and that's how we got around our territories. Orders were sent to us on fax machines. We sent our sales reports through fax machines. All of our sales calls, though, were in person. So, and everybody that worked at that office, sales wise, would be at the round table.
So they would
Um,
actually show up.
they would show up. They were located physically close enough to their offices, so we'd go
Yeah.
door to door and do in person sales calls. And back then, product presentations were all about features and benefits, where
Yeah.
today it's more of a consultative selling environment, right? So it was features and benefits. So we were super excited to always, get all the really like the engineering background behind a new product and how it was made, because
Right.
that's how we sold it back then. Um,
Well, and you had the advantage too, and I'm going off script a little bit because you did get the questions in advance, which is fine. But you had the advantage of having the big brand behind you in an
oh,
industry, especially back then, name brands did not touch the corporate market space at
no,
all.
it was Big Graphic and Papermate. And
Yeah,
Paul Corey and I would follow each other around on sales calls. But to your point, I would just make a phone call to my customer and I would say I was with Bic and I never got a no. It was an
right.
automatic door opener. So that was amazing. But then you still had to know what you're talking about once you got in
Well,
the
of
door.
course, that
Yeah.
just got you in the door, but I had to believe that was a great advantage for you, especially
Yes.
learning the industry and the weird pricing codes and having dot matrix print on green bar paper and all
Yeah,
these things.
yeah, yeah. And a lot of back then, the our artwork that we required was camera ready artwork,
Camera ready. Yeah, oh yeah.
right? Remember that? But it wasn't
Oh yeah.
uncommon for us to get bev naps and
Yeah.
letterhead as artwork. It happened
Oh
all
yeah.
the time. People just sent anything in with a logo on it. In fact, the early days of doing spec samples, I literally would go into the grocery store. Of course, Procter and Gamble was, headquartered in Cincinnati, and I would go into the grocery store and I'd buy Crest toothpaste and Downy, and I would
Yep.
literally cut the logo off the packaging, mail it down, and that's a big way that I was selling product by doing spec samples, but it was from just
Right.
literally product packaging.
That's
And that's
crazy.
all before cell phones. We were using pay
Oh
phones.
yeah.
You were a good rep if you
Oh.
knew where the longest handle on or the cord on a payphone was to return your calls.
So I'm just a few years younger than you. So I started my career in 1992. So very, very close. And I remember I was working in Dallas at the time and I sold temporary help. You know, sorry, ladies, he's taken. Anyway, but I remember there were cell phone, or there I didn't have a cell phone. I had a pager, and when the office would page me, I'd have to find a cell phone or a payphone. And there were some in Dallas, I knew where they were, that were literally car high and had the long cord, so you could make your call, pull the cord through, kind of roll your window up if it was raining or too hot. Oh yeah, I remember those days.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. And then
So you're
it
go ahead.
wasn't too long after that. Then we got cell phones that were installed in your car, and I still have my same cell phone from number from back then, so I still have the original.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Now you're clearly an industry lifer. What does this industry offer that has kept you here for years, for decades?
Just think, no 2 days are the same. Number one, obviously also the relationships, but I really enjoy the creative aspect of our
Yep.
industry and coming up with ideas and campaigns and finding ways to help pre-sell the idea to the distributor. But it's just exciting to watch a brand unfold and then hear the stories about how the product's used. But the biggest thing for me really is the relationships, and you really want to do work with your clients because of that relationship. And some of my best friends in the industry are from the industry because of the relationships that I've been able to cultivate over the years.
I loved it. Now you joined California Tattoos last year. Tell me why that was the right fit for you.
That's a great question. So, gosh, yeah, it's almost been a year. I can't believe it. And I remember walking onto the ASI and the PPAI trade show floors as a niche supplier. So it's
Yeah.
really like going back to my roots with Bic Graphic, because when I started back with Bic Graphic, we had 12 writing instruments, two lighters, and a shaver. And we really were a niche supplier back then.
Yeah.
Of course, over the years, there were a lot of acquisitions, factory
Mhm.
partnerships that, then we sold almost all categories, all brands, right? But this is like going back to my roots. And in fact, when I first joined California Tattoos, there were several people in leadership and the marketing team that I did work with previously. So it was like a nice
Coming home.
welcoming back home. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I love that. And I have to say, so you, California Tattoos, donated to the pre-sale merch kit. And
Might have been
real quick,
this.
it might have been that. Yeah. So I've still got, and what she's showing is our very intricately designed event tattoo. For those of you just listening, it's one of those Mexican skull things. I know they're like a Dia de los Muertos skull. And I will tell you, you tattooed me last Tuesday, a week ago. Oh, and I just messed with my camera. I have one of those smart cameras that get all weird. Anyway, um, but you tattooed, it's still on. And so I will tell you, there's some quality temporary tattoos. Now, I don't know if it was the person applying it, because it wasn't me, it was you. But man, that thing's awesome. So seriously, kudos to you guys.
Good. You're a walking billboard.
I am. I'm a walking bill board. All right. Many of us are going to be, many of us are going to be in Las Vegas in about 8 weeks for Expo. Some of us are going to be at ASI Orlando, but I want to focus on Expo for this question. I want you to compare and contrast what the experience is like now versus when it was in Dallas, because you're one of the few people I know I can talk to about that. I went my first show, my first expo was in Dallas as well, but I want to hear what your thoughts on that, because we get
Oh,
every year people squawking about, I'm tired of it being in Vegas. Let's move it back to Dallas. Let's move it somewhere else. I want to hear your perspective on comparing and contrasting when it was in Dallas and now that it's in Vegas.
well, one of the first things that I want to mention on that is we nobody wore branded merchandise when the show was in Dallas. We wore the ladies wore a jacket and a skirt. We wore pantyhose and we wore pumps, high heels. The men all
Same
wore
for the guys.
suits. The guys wore
Oh,
suits and
oh,
dress shoes. And then the older guys in the industry always wore polyester suits and tennis shoes. And I know we made fun of them a little bit.
yeah.
But it was like it was the big event of the year. So it was very
Hmm.
exciting to go to the Dallas show. The big events outside of the trade show were like supplier parties. And then there
Yeah.
were a
All and
few
all over the
industry,
place.
yeah. And then there were a few big industry events like at the Anatole.
Hmm.
ASI would always throw an event. But the difference between, for me, thinking back Dallas versus Vegas, and obviously the size of the show is much larger now.
Sure.
Um, but there's so much else to do in Las Vegas. With Dallas, it was everything was really close knit and everybody was going to the same venues. But Dallas, we only launched product in January. So the Dallas
Right.
show was where you went as a distributor to get the hot new products to take back to your clients. So they were always coming to shop for the new products. But it
Right.
was
Because there
all
wasn't
about
social media. Yeah, there wasn't social media. There
correct.
wasn't online catalogs. There wasn't all these things. So you would literally, as a distributor, walk into those trade shows and you would have to really, instead of just kind of racing through, you'd have to stop and look because that's where the new products were launched. That's a great point.
New products and everybody had their quarterly promotions. And if you wanted a catalog, you had to go and you had to put it in your bag, carry it home, or ship it home. It was all print. If you wanted samples, you had to go there to actually get your samples. Otherwise, you had to wait. You had to wait till the
Yeah.
sales reps came door to door to deliver your stuff to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely different. But we outgrew Dallas, and that's why we moved
Did.
to Vegas.
Well, and the other part of Dallas that I always want to remind people, look, I don't love Vegas as a city. I don't personally. But as you said, the industry, global we, outgrew Dallas. And there's not a lot of places in the United States that can hold our trade show in one facility, or the size of the show. So let's leave that out of it. The other reason, Dallas, I grew up in Dallas. I love Dallas. Dallas is still home in a large part of my brain. You can get some gnarly weather in Dallas in January. Yes, it's the South, but man, you can get ice storms. Just ask Jerry Jones and when they hosted the Super Bowl about 12 years ago or 14 years ago. I mean, it can cripple and it'll cripple the city. And it's hardcore inch thick ice storms. You can't predict that.
Yeah,
Now, travel anytime in January is always tenuous, but once you get to Vegas, you're okay. You don't have to worry about Vegas shutting down
yeah.
for
I,
weather.
Do you remember like the rumors would fly around the trade show in Dallas that the airports were closing and the
Oh yeah.
flights were getting canceled? But I remember one year we had such a bad ice storm that none of the workers could come to the hotels, the buses couldn't run, everything was shut down. We were all just stuck in our hotels for days.
Well, and
But
you had no way to get information but local news. So everybody be crowded around the bar watching the local ABC or NBC affiliate, whatever, just to see what was going on. You'd have to make phone calls to the airport to find out what's going on. I mean, for those of you who are younger, it probably sounds like we lived in 1946. It was worse. We lived in 1926. So trust me on that. As a supplier, you've been to a ton of networking events. Some great, some not so great, some that we probably shouldn't talk about. Now, in an era where access to the right distributors, the ones who are likely to buy from you, it's more difficult than ever. One, what are the best practices that you've seen to create a great networking event? And two, advice would you give attendees to maximize networking events?
for me, like the best way to get the most out of a networking event would be all the pre-planning. So you want to pre-plan, you want to know your audience, you want to maybe reach out to them ahead of time just to make that warm connection and ask them if they're working on anything or if they have any client logos. If you do get any client logos and intel, a great opportunity would be to do your pre-work, create some virtual samples, um, and come prepared and armed that you thought about their business ahead of time. It's also always great to have a theme for any of your events. It can make it a lot of fun, and you can really round out that theme with your product. And then the follow
Absolutely.
up. But be engaged while you're there, and make
Yes.
sure you take great notes. And the follow up is key. And follow up immediately.
Yeah.
The first person to follow up is going to get the opportunities.
And I
And
think you
it's
nailed it. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think you nailed it. The planning and making sure that every attention to detail is there. But I love your advice to attendees is to be present. It strikes me as bizarre, whether it's expo or whatever event you want to see, and people take time out of their life, time away from their families, time away from their businesses, and they turtle up and hide in a hotel room, or they talk to the same people they've always talked to, and they don't throw themselves into the actual event. I've never understood that. If you're at an event as an attendee, man, go all in. And if it stinks, if it's a terrible event, then don't go back. That's fine. But when you're there, throw yourself full in on it.
Yep. And have fun. And then as far as advice I
Absolutely.
would give for attendees, um, same thing. I mean, connect with the suppliers afterwards. Make sure you're sharing any relevant opportunities with them. Um, and for me, connect with people on LinkedIn, connect with them on all their social media
Right.
platforms. And that's how you really build your network. But yeah, it's
100%.
events are an amazing way to really, really build your network.
They really are. So now's the time to plan your event at Expo, people. This is the time to start making appointments and scheduling things. All right. Last
Exactly.
question. You grew up in Cincinnati. You currently live in Tampa, but you, along with Billy, your husband, are huge Dallas Cowboys fans. First question is why?
Well, so Billy, my husband, is the huge Cowboys fan, and I am now too. But he had the opportunity to meet Roger Staubach when he was 5 years old. So Roger is a native
Okay.
Cincinnatian, and Billy
Mm-hmm.
got invited to Roger's dad's house and met him when he was 5. And so he just fell in love with it. And back in the 70s, that's when the whole America's team came about and all the hype. And then of course Roger went to the Naval Academy, served 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then went on to win 2 Super Bowls for the Cowboys after that. So he
Yeah,
just made a big impact on Billy's life, and he's been a Cowboys fan ever since. I think some of the local teams, the Bengals and the Browns and teams like that back then, weren't
that's
doing
okay.
as well. So there was a lot more excitement.
I wish I had asked that question last week on the cruise because I would have shared this story. The reason I'm a Cowboys fan, I was born in Illinois, but I moved to Texas when I was about 8. And moved during the summer. My parents thought was we're going to move during the summer, at the beginning of summer, so that little Billy, that's me, would make friends and have friends going into the school year. Didn't really happen like that, but we all they did what they thought was best. But I remember that summer, we went to a local hardware store. It's a small chain in Dallas called Handy Dan. And we went, and Roger Staubach was there. I was 8 years old, signing autographs, and no one was there. No one was there. And he had about 20 minutes left. And I went up to him and I was awestruck because I knew who he was and was a kind of a Cowboys fan already because we were moving to Dallas. And he said, "Do you want to go out in the parking lot and play catch?" I got to play catch with Roger Staubach at 8 years old for 20 minutes, running routes in a parking lot. And so I'll never not be a Cowboys fan, regardless of how poorly
Yeah,
the franchise is run. So I wish I would have been able to talk to Billy about that because it sounds like he had a very similar
yeah,
experience. That's
yeah.
awesome.
And Billy, when he played in high school, he was number 12, and that was
Yeah.
Roger's number. And about 15 years ago, I surprised Billy for his birthday, and took his birthday's Halloween, and the Cowboys happened to be playing that year on Halloween, and I surprised him. We
Hmm.
went to the Cowboys game. We did a VIP tour of the stadium the day before. And actually, we just went back to the game October
You did.
19th for his Halloween birthday this year. So that was
I
really
love it.
exciting.
What do you think of that stadium? You've been there, you've been to games there, you've done the tour. What are your thoughts on that stadium?
It's probably one of the greatest sports experiences I've ever had. And we were there 3 weeks ago, and it was an absolutely stunning day weather-wise. And we were standing there in a distance, and all of a sudden, both sides of the stadium open up. The sliding doors open up.
Yeah,
It's just an experience. You know, it holds
yeah,
over 80,000 seated ticket holders. And of course, the
yep.
Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, you can't complain about that.
Now, I don't know who is Billy's all-time favorite player, not named Roger Staubach, and who's your favorite player in
I'm
college
gonna
football?
say
Current.
Troy
Let's go.
Aikman.
Okay, Troy. I like Troy.
Yeah, Troy Aikman. He obviously won 3 Super Bowls. But yeah, Troy Aikman would be my favorite.
Awesome. And Billy's besides Roger.
Probably Tony Romo. And
Okay.
I'm just guessing that. He's always been a Roger Staubach fan.
Yeah, let's be clear. Tony Romo, the quarterback, not Tony Romo, the very awkward broadcaster who has very bizarre anger chemistry with Jim Nance and makes weird sounds while he's
Yeah.
broadcasting. Hey, Jill, this has been fun. Before we let you go, let me say thank you to our sponsor today. A big thanks to our pals over at PPAI. That's the Promotional Products Association International. Now is the time, right now, not today, not tomorrow, not after breakfast. Right now is the time to register for the Super Bowl of the promotional products industry, the PPAI EXPO, with over 1 million square feet of exhibit space, over I can't even count how many exhibiting suppliers. What, 1,200 exhibiting suppliers? Who knows? It's lots. And unmatched networking opportunities. This is the one industry event you cannot afford to miss. Register today at ppai.org/expo. Jill, had a great time on the promo cruise. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for doing the podcast today. We'll do it again sometime.
So great to see you. Thank you.